Right, James Bond, a character synonymous with Britain, sidling up to bars and having martinis. We are recently, or going to be getting Bond 25 or Bond 24, basically Bond No Time to Die. And it's interesting for a few reasons because it does mark a notable shift and transition away from the archetype of Bond or the very ingrained character and history of James Bond, and they're looking to move it towards this new generation. Famously, lots of articles and statements by the cast and crew saying we need James Bond to be part of the Me Too era. Now, we can argue to the cows come home to whether that is suitable or a little bit disrespectful to the character. It doesn't really matter. Now, obviously off the back end of that, and then the other news which were coming out surrounding this movie, there were some people, I myself included, that thought they would potentially go down the route of having a female James Bond. In fact, it was the hot topic in the press for a long time. It was debated on talk shows, especially in the UK, that they were going to make Jane Bond. Specific outlets, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, kept hounding other former members who have, James Bond actors basically, to get their opinion on a Jane Bond and whether they think that's the right thing to do. Now, this is an interview with Barbara Broccoli, and it's quite telling. Despite all of the bluster that's come out surrounding James Bond recently and the press, the outlets, very mass movement to push for a female James Bond, it seems to be confirmed categorically by Barbara Broccoli that we will not get one. She does, however, say that James Bond can be of any colour, but just simply can't be a woman, which I do find quite interesting. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at this article and then just kind of discuss whether this is backpedaling of any sort, or whether it's them kind of listening to the room, or it was their intention all along. We just don't know. Because the thing is, what one needs to remember is that outrage marketing is absolutely a thing. And there wasn't a great deal of interest in this movie before all of this outrage had started. Now the outrage is there. A lot of eyes do seem to be pointed towards this film. Now this is just some background on the Broccolis and on James Bond. Now it does say, obviously off screen, it's a different story. One family, the Broccolis, has long maintained an iron grip on the franchise. It's just to say that they have essentially had a very unique deal. It was very unique, in fact. They have been able to exert an unprecedented level of creative control, serving as the final arbiter on everything, from the scripts to the casting to the promotional materials. And that's a very unusual deal in Hollywood. It's not something which is normal. Normally, studios will buy the rights to the property wholesale. That's it. It's theirs, basically. So them having this is unusual. So it is interesting bit of background there. And obviously, it goes on to say, for better or worse, we are the custodians of this character, says Barbara Broccoli, who oversees the franchise with her half-brother, Michael G. Wilson. We take that responsibility very seriously. It's an arrangement that was first hammered out by Broccoli's father, the producer Albert Cubby, Broccoli, when John F. Kennedy was president, and the twist was all the rage. Miraculous, that pact has prevailed through the decades and generations, enduring everything from corporate mergers and bankruptcies to shifting consumer tastes and geopolitical upheavals. It's a really, really interesting deal that they had, and we don't really have enough time to go into it, but it's one where they're making a bucket load of money. I mean, like it says, look, Hollywood's longest running and one of its most lucrative franchises, the Spy series, has spawned 24 films, so yeah, it is Bond 25, and they've collectively amassed 16.3 billion. That's a lot of money. In fact, according to 2018 Forbes story on Bond by the numbers, it's 6.9 billion unadjusted. So again, if we're looking at a full adjusted inflation, it's a lot. Like 6.9 billion, even back throughout those decades, it's a lot of money. It's a huge, huge deal that they have had. Now, let's get to some more interesting comments. So it says, unlike the famously chatty Bond villains who have a penchant for spilling every detail of their deadly schemes, instead of concentrating on killing off 007, the plot details of No Time to Die are being closely held. Now, obviously, there's a paper-thin logline, one that states that Bond, having retired from active duty, finds himself pulled back into the world of espionage after a scientist is abducted. Now, I will say, that's not unusual for James Bond films. They don't really have too much in terms of the logline, to be fair. Now, it says neither Broccoli nor Wilson will reveal much beyond that, but they do say, and they do promise, that the film will tie up all loose narrative ends left from previous Craig outings. And they say, we have come to an emotionally satisfying conclusion. Basically saying, bye-bye Daniel Craig, it's been good having you. We've wrapped up your 4 movies now. Now, Barbara doesn't take no for an answer, says Craig. It's not in her wheelhouse. I had a nice long break, which I really needed, because this goes back to a lot of things where Craig was really, really anti James Bond. So it says on the press tour for 2015's Spectre, Craig had out and out said that he would rather slash his wrists rather than return to another James Bond film. I'm pretty sure he got offered a lot of money and was probably pointing towards his contract saying, you have to do this, mate. Deal with it. Because it's really, really, that's some bad PR right there. And I remember at the time a lot of people were commenting on that, because it is quite, I'd rather slash my wrist than return for another film. That's insane. Now, continues on, just some little bits and pieces about, No Time to Die, how much it costs. I mean, $250 million. Production is a lot. They've been spending a fair amount on marketing. So, average is double production. It's looking like a $500 million movie. This movie has to make an awful lot of money. An awful lot of money to start making profit. Now, obviously, it says there are certain things the duo appears open to considering and other conversations that are non-starters when it comes to selecting the next Bond. And here's the interesting part. He says he can be of any colour, but he is male, says Barbara Broccoli. I believe we should be creating new characters for women, strong females. I'm not particularly interested in taking a male character and having a woman play it. I think women are far more interesting than that. I like it. Now, that's obviously one of the main reasons why you even clicked on this video. Barbara Broccoli here is saying what many people are afraid of saying, is that just stop gender swapping characters, create new interesting ones for women to play. And I wholeheartedly agree. I don't see what's wrong about that. I think that that is the right way to go. Ready or Not, fantastic film this year. Well, last year now, sorry. Awesome film. Strong female character, was a badass. Go check it out if you haven't already. It's awesome. Now, it is interesting that she goes to say that, look, he can be of any colour, but he is male. Again, it'd be interesting to see how they work that into the storyline. And I say that because the more recent James Bonds have continued a continuity. So it'd be interesting to see how they do that, whether they swap him out, they don't have him as James Bond, they just have him as 007. Who knows? And I will out and out say right here, I was wrong. I was part of the sort of media outlets that were saying, oh, it looks like they're going to go for the Jane Bond route, because it did look like it, genuinely. Now, I don't know whether they're still going to go do a spin-off route. There's high potential that they will. And I still think that there is, like I say, potential that they will do a spin-off route in the James Bond franchise. And the reason why I say that is ultimately every franchise now wants a universe. Every studio wants a universe. And those that have bought the rights to this currently, I believe it's MGM, and maybe Universal or Paramount, can't remember off the top of my head, but they've got distribution rights for this. So, and production rights. They are going to want to turn this into something very, very lucrative. And if they can build a spin-off, so good. Of course, for them, it'd be great. So I still think there's potential they will make a spin-off character, i.e. the lady that is going to be in this current James Bond, but it is interesting nonetheless. Now, this is interesting. This goes to basically a map of Bond at the box office. It's really, really interesting when you map it out. I mean, it starts quite low and then starts to peak. And at its all-time highest, it was Skyfall with 1.1 billion. I think the marketing for that film seemed to have sealed that. And then obviously Spectre was, 881, so a little bit under 1 billion, but does seem to have peaked. Now, for this film to make any money with a budget of $250 million and a marketing budget of, maybe close to another $250 million, they're going to need to hit easy 800 or so to start making any sort of good money back from the you know, the expense of this film. Now, obviously, there's a little bit more background to Barbara Broccoli and James Bond and things like this, but it's really not that important. I think the overall important part of this is really that statement of, you know, James Bond can be any colour, but he can't be a woman, which I like. I do think that that's completely right. I don't see any issue with that. There are some other interesting snippets here. You know, Barbara never stopped taking care of the crew. No Time to Die. When I was sick, she'd make me homemade soup. You know, there's a lot of things here about how, this is notably PR spin, of course, but there's a lot of comments here about how good she is on things like this, and how she looks after people. Famously, she hasn't had the best press, so this does seem to be a bit of a PR spin. But what did you guys think of this? What do you guys think of her comments? Does it fill you with promise, or are you still a bit skeptical? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like I say, the other bits and pieces of this, there's not too much to go through because it literally just goes down to her background and it's just PR spin. But I'll leave this link down below in the description box for those that want to take a look at it. Anyway guys, thanks so much for watching. I've been Mr. H. Take care.